tonight, before I came home to come do this with and fill in for Ben, I had the opportunity, the Alonzo Krim Center here in Georgia, at Georgia State University. They had some pre-events. They have a conference going on this weekend. They're going to be talking about issues involving school to prison pipeline. There is the OSD school district issue going on here in Atlanta. With looking at state control and takeover of public schools, kind of looking at the proposed model here in Georgia is based off of a failed plan from New Orleans. But I went to a presentation. Dr. Akinyele Umoja is the head of the African American Studies Department at Georgia State, and he wrote a book, We Will Shoot Back. Some of you may have seen my tweets about it earlier this evening. My last, closing out, power to the people. But We Will Shoot Back. I just got my copy. I've started reading my mom's copy, but then I wanted to make notes in the margin. I know some of you do that when you read and highlight and stuff. Dr. Umoja actually will be joining me on the way Tuesday night at 8 p.m. We're going to be chopping it up and talking about how to leverage our power, how to grow power for greater political access, as well as we'll talk about the book some and really just talk about community organizing and building out opportunities for people to engage and activate. But just going back from the quote I used Tuesday night, there's a difference between growing support, growing our base, and growing support, and growing power, growing access, right? And one of the things that was so wonderful from the talk that was said was that when you look at, like I said, this is the 50th anniversary of the Black Power movement, of the Black Panther Party. When you look at these movements, when you look at these opportunities to engage and build, people were carving out for themselves. They weren't waiting for anyone to give them access. They weren't, having these discussions. So one of the things with We Will Shoot Back, it talks about armed resistance in Mississippi. And a lot of people think of, this time during the Civil Rights Movement was just strictly nonviolence. You had the Deacons for Self-Defense. You had groups that actually did defend people, did exercise self-defense. Everybody always thinks that it's just Malcolm with that iconic picture with the gun by the window, but there was an entire movement in the South. There were Black gun clubs. You had Black members of the NRA in the South. During this time period. They weren't necessarily supported or recognized by the NRA. But people had Black gun clubs because people had to defend against the Klan and against other intrusions into their community and defend their properties, their family, and their liberty. This happened. So this book is excellent. You can definitely, cop it online. And like I said, Dr. Umoja will be with me on Tuesday night to discuss this. But what I thought was so great about the conversation was just talking about the transition from maybe that height of, when we talk about post 65, when you're going towards, Black Power, Stokely Carmichael in 66, and the genesis of the Black Power movement and the use of the phrase Black Power, and how that actually, when you look at that period coming out of, when you look at Mississippi, right? Because we're talking about Mississippi, in particular, Jackson, Mississippi. I believe he said Jackson, Mississippi. Mississippi. That's a killer word. Remember trying to spell that as a kid? MISSISSIPPI. Anyway, Jackson, Mississippi is about 85% Black, I think, right? And they were just talking about how, this movement activity and leveraging it, talking about gaining political power in this instance, right? Gaining social power, building social capital, and actually looking at how to build a foundation and run candidates of the community to represent the community that are accountable to the community. And it's great that we get support together to come defeat, an amendment or come vote for some person. But how do we grow our power, grow our base to be able to then leverage and put people in positions? And this is what we started doing for those of us who came in this movement and supported Bernie Sanders, and for those people who are now going green, right? We are leveraging our collective power and strategy and engaging to put people in positions that we're infiltrating the system, right? We're occupying the system in a sense. And so this conversation tonight, just and this is why having historical reflections is really good, because there are great examples that come from histories and stories to be shared and told that can help inform decisions that we're making going forward. And one thing that I appreciated, my stepfather spoke as well. May have shared this before. Stepfather's a former Black Panther, member of the Black Liberation Army. and other organizations. He's a founding board member of the organization Critical Resistance. And one of these days, he's actually sitting on a panel tomorrow night talking about prison industrial complex and prison liberation. And he did a piece 15 years ago, I think, about Attica, and so he's going to be talking about that as well, and some of the stuff around the protests that have been happening. But so one day I'll be able to grab him and actually get him to sit down and talk to me too. But they were talking about, these organizations and these conversations that are happening and how a lot of this movement work is starting to come full circle. People have been doing this for a long time. And now there are more of us who are cognizant and aware of what people are doing, how they're doing it. And it's great to have these stories. So I talk about Jackson, Mississippi. We talk about it as a Jackson model. I've talked before about Baba Chokwe Lumumba, who may rest in peace, he passed away, who was mayor of Jackson. He was city councilman, and they built out a people's assembly and used that to help leverage the power of their community to first elect him to city council. And then they used that power that they have been moving, they've been building that movement, to elect him as mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. And for him to be a revolutionary, candidate coming in the vein of a Fannie Lou Hamer style Democrat, right? That was huge. And now in this election cycle, his son is actually running for mayor of Jackson now. So shout out to Chokwe. And I'm trying to reach out to him, because I really think that the model that they're building for community engagement and organizing is a great example for us about growing that power. We're talking about we need to grow when we're looking at local and state elections. And then hopefully we can create a movement where we're doing that. And of course, it takes the national effort too. But at some point, whether it's in 2020 or in 2024, we're able to really start affecting the power on a national level, right? We're growing power. And I think that this is just such a great piece. When I talk about power to the people, talk about free to land, we talk about the Black radical tradition, and I'm really excited to start bringing in some people who have lived it, who've researched it, who've experienced it, who can talk more about it in more detail. But I think it can inform a lot of the work that we're saying needs to be done, lessons learned and all that jazz. The last thing, what I appreciate the most is that he said they don't tell people what to do, or back in my day, we did this when you're doing wrong. Because sometimes they said, they may have been things you guys have learned, meaning us, our generation of organizers and activists, that they didn't know then. And we have the access to technology. We have so much more now, right? So I definitely think it's great bringing together the old and the new and mixing it all up. I'm really excited for this. Thank you so much again for joining me tonight on the Benjamin Dixon Show.